This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm thrilled to be talking to today's guest. She's a marketing and public relations expert, an award-winning entrepreneur, and leads a team, marketing veteran with over 20 years of strategic brand experience with, expertise in event campaigns, developing brand identity, and creating marketing strategies. She's been recognized as a 40 under 40 honoree, a 3-time winner of the Public Relations Society American Awards, and an 8-time Maxi Gold Award winner from the International Council of Shopping Centers. She was among the 2024 top women in business by the Hartford Business Journal. And last but not least, she's the president at Image Marketing Consultants and the principal of C2 Marketing. Kate Terricciano, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. That was quite an intro.
I know, my producer gives me all these great things to say about all my guests. I only interview the best.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. After 20 years, I feel old and, you got to do a few things over those years. So, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, let's get right down to it. The first big question I ask every guest is, what is the single most powerful strategy for success in your agency these days?
Oh, my goodness. So I thought long and hard about this one. The single most effective strategy for us over the years has by far been flexibility. I think that our industry has changed so much over the past year, over the past 5 years, over the past 10 years. And what's attributed to our success is to be able to, sort of morph with those times, be flexible, cater to what clients need, and be able to shift. Because sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, and you have to be able to adjust. So flexibility is the name of the game.
And that assumes some element of, authenticity or vulnerability, right? If things aren't working, you gotta identify that and course correct and talk to the client, right?
Yeah, and I think honestly, clients appreciate that more. I sometimes think that agencies have like this rep of, we try to market ourselves, right? So much to a fault sometimes. So I think that being able to admit mistakes or have to change course, that clients appreciate that candor. And nobody's perfect and no strategy is perfect. And I think that marketing is definitely more of an art than a science. And sometimes you just have to get a little creative with it.
Now, a lot of your clients are real estate developers, right? You focus on real estate developers and attracting tenants for them.
Yeah, so that's our main focus. We work with retail real estate developers across the country, which is a fancy way of saying, shopping centers. So we work with all the top malls, across the US. And we not only attract tenants for them, but our primary role is to bring shoppers into malls. And I'll be honest with you, as we approach 2026, sometimes people look at me like I have 3 heads when I say that, because malls are an evolving industry. Some people say dying, we say evolving, but it's different, right? Malls are different than they were 10 years ago. And so, COVID had a lot to do with that. So our job as marketers is to constantly create programming that's going to get people to come in and shop and kind of experience everything that these developments have to offer.
Right. And so what does that mean in terms of, the staff you hire and how you deliver services? Is there some special sauce to working with mall owners?
I don't think I would call it a special sauce. I think it's just a niche that we've really integrated ourselves into well. We're certainly known for our work with real estate developers. So, our staff's really good at it. We do it day in and day out. We have best practice learning across the industry from it. We know what works, we know what doesn't. That doesn't prevent us from trying new things or being creative with how we do things. But, our team is constantly trying to think outside the box. Our team is trying to come up with new ideas and maybe that's a new social media campaign. Maybe that's a new publicity stunt. Maybe it's guerrilla marketing. But I don't think there's necessarily a secret sauce. I think it's just kind of liking what you do and embracing it and knowing your client's industries really well.
Yeah, that's probably true. I spoke with a gentleman yesterday who, his agency's focused on representing clients who are in crisis, like people who have bad headlines in the news, and he helps them. It's like, yeah, that's not for everybody. Um, right? It's like you represent a lot of guilty people. Maybe you don't think they're guilty of exactly what they were charged with, but they're probably guilty of something. But
So we get to our fair share. It's funny you say that because, people think about malls, right? And you think, oh, what could go wrong in a mall? Well, a lot could go wrong in a mall. So, we certainly have our own practice of crisis communications as well. We don't do it day in and day out, but, you think about natural disasters. You think about there could be shootings in malls. There could be a mouse running through a food court in a mall, right? And so what I tell people now too is that our industry has changed so much from a PR and a publicity perspective simply because everybody now can be their own media outlet, right? All you need is a smartphone, you need your camera. You walk into a store, something happens, whip your camera out, take video of it, and you can send it to a newsroom instantaneously. So it's kind of changed how we've done business as well because we have to be more cognizant of that we're really talking to the masses here now instead of just media as well. But I would want to do it 24/7 like that guy. I like intermixing some shopping and some dining in there when I visit our clients as well.
yeah, there you go. Well, that guy represented some people that, very challenging. Not everybody would probably want to represent, but everybody deserves a defense attorney, as I said.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you focus on the malls and tenants and real estate developers and driving traffic. I'm, just kind of curious, like how you got into that niche, because most people I speak with, that's not their niche. How did you get into that?
So it's so funny because we kind of fell into malls. When I tell people that, it sounds like such a cliche, right? But gosh, about 15 years ago, we were working with a nonprofit organization. And that nonprofit was doing a suit collection drive. And so they were working with a mall. It was a Westfield mall, which many people know that name Westfield. I'm based in Connecticut. It was here in Connecticut. And I had just sort of started, and I think I had sort of that entrepreneurial spirit that you have when you're in your 20s. And the mall marketing director had called and said, would you do PR for us? And so that initial contract was for 3 malls. And we did their PR, we did some creative strategy, we did some media buying. And then one of the malls got purchased by a larger company, a larger developer. And so then that client took us with them, and then we started working with their centers. And so honestly, I wish it was you know, a sexier story than that, but it really just we kind of happened to fall into it. We liked working in that industry. Our team liked working, liked shopping. Again, as cliche as that sounds. And we really just sort of fell into it. And from there, we kind of grew. Word of mouth was a huge avenue for us. We do get a ton of referrals from the industry. And we don't work only with retail. We do work with other sectors of commercial real estate as well. We work with multifamily, affordable, not really residential, but office and logistics space too. But retail is kind of where we started. So just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
So you've been killing it in that vertical, although everybody hears and you read the headlines like malls are dying, blah, 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 blah. So, to what you buy into that? Are you trying to diversify or you just think the the hype is overblown and then malls are always going to be there.
Well, I don't think that malls will always be there in their current form, right? And I think that we see that across the country. I think that some parts of the country experience it more than others, but retail really is evolving. You see it now in these, major super regional and closed centers that they're adding new pad tenants. They are adding multifamily, they're adding apartments to the campus. They are adding more experiential tenants, things like that. I think that retail is not dead by any means, but people do shop online more, and the logistics and the supply chain has changed as well. So for us, although we love it, we're really good at it. We do try to diversify. I think that we have used malls as sort of a stepping point for us. Now we work with some of their retailers and their tenants and other lifestyle brands. We do some financial services work. We do a lot of nonprofit work. We really are a shop that does specialize in consumer marketing. We do not do too much B2B at all. So if you're a consumer brand, then essentially you're a target for us.
Yeah, it's very interesting how malls have evolved. I'm thinking about a development that happened in my town a couple miles away. Um, there's like fitness centers, there's apartments on the second floor, there's restaurants, there's traditional retail. Like we seem to move beyond just traditional to consumer being 100% of a mall. It seems a much more integrated living experience than maybe it used to be when I was a kid 30 years ago.
Absolutely. One of our major flagship clients is a property called Blueback Square here in Connecticut. And really the mantra behind it is live, work, play. And Blueback Square, 15 years ago was primarily a retail destination. You would have your Gap, your Ann Taylor, I had a Charming Charlie's, stores that you would go in and purchase. Now, a lot of that has been diversified. We have more restaurants, we have more fitness studios, we have more office space. People want to be able to walk out their door, have sort of that urban, suburban hybrid living experience, if you will, where you can walk to get your groceries. You can go to happy hour and walk, a couple buildings down and go to, your fitness class in the morning. So, not every development is set up for that, but I think that you are astute to say that even as a consumer, what you're seeing is that we're kind of evolving into more of this hybrid experience rather than, like when we were kids, like we're going to drive, we're going to go to the mall, we're going to walk around with our friends, we're going to stay there for 2 hours, we're going to go to JCPenney, then we're going to leave. That's just not the way that it is anymore. But it's fun. Change brings about new opportunities and new things to experiment with and new strategies that are needed. And for me as a marketer, it's ever evolving. So we get to not be stagnant, try different things and, see what sticks.
So, what are your goals for your own firm? If we sat down 4 years from now and your dreams came true with your own firm, like what are you trying to accomplish by owning your firm, and what are you doing?
It's such it's like the $1,000,000 question. I think as anybody who's kind of at this point, we're a small to medium sized firm. We do well. We have good work-life balance, which is important to me. Our team has been here. I mean, I think the average time is probably 6 years now of average tenure for our employees. And so when I think about it, I think, well, how long do I want to do this? For me and my personality specifically, like I just mentioned before, I love it because every day is different, right? I don't go to an office. I don't sit. I don't do the same thing. So I'm able to kind of flex those creative muscles and keep the brain working. From a business perspective, I have to say AI is going to be interesting. We use it as a tool right now. We look at it as an add-on and a benefit to the business overall. But will it always be like that? Will agencies be displaced? Those are the sort of things that kind of keep me up at night a little bit as I think about the 5 to 10 year plan. I mean, ultimately, I want to grow, bring more people on, grow our revenues, both our top and our bottom line, continue to do really great work for our clients. We are not a shop that burns and turns. Some of my competitors and some other agencies, they're so aggressive with business development to a fault. They're bringing new clients in. But to me, it's like if you bring all these clients in, you have to be able to service them. And so when you kind of peel the curtain back, it's what's going on the kind of the internal side of the agency. So we never want to be that kind of agency. We really want to take on clients that mean, good relationships for us that we do great work on. Um, but ultimately, we'll kind of grow and sell at some point. I don't know if that's 10 years from now or 30 years from now. Um, but that's kind of the trajectory. Right now, I just kind of want to keep doing the same and get better at it every day.
Awesome. So are you actively looking at other verticals to expand into outside of malls?
Yeah, so some of the ones that we've talked about are more hospitality, more hotels, travel, luxury side of things. That to us is a really nice kind of fit to what we're already doing. We've looked at more beauty verticals. Beauty and fitness is such an industry that's definitely blowing up. Doing more within the CRE space, beyond just retail. I mentioned before, we do office, we do logistics, kind of growing that practice as well. Because a lot of the same strategies can be translated across the different specialties. So we're sort of open. I think 20. So right now we're in 2025. In 2027, the winter of 2027, we're going to be celebrating our 20th anniversary. So for us, that's a big milestone. We're doing some strategic planning going into the next 18 months. And 6 months from now, hopefully have a better idea of like where our growth strategy is going to take us.
Yeah, so congratulations. 20 years is a big milestone.
Thank you. I have to joke because never in a million years did I think that Image would be the business that it is today. Um, I kind of wrote down the name on the back of a napkin thing, um, at a coffee shop. And the reason Image started, I don't know if I really got into this, is because I was working in New York City for an agency that specialized in, promotions and experiential marketing for, A-list kind of celebrity, different sports teams and things like that. And another sponsor beyond the one that I had been working with said, "Do you ever do any consulting?" And at 23 years old, I thought, "Nope, not really. I don't even really know what that means." And I thought, you know what? Let me try it. Let me do some consulting. And so we started in a little LLC, and here we are almost 20 years later. So I've been very fortunate.
That's great. Yeah, you're 23, you're like, I don't know anything yet in my life. Why is somebody hiring me to consult with them? But
Exactly. You really want to give me money? Okay. But you know what? It's everything kind of happens for a reason. My personal story even before that, I had to start working very early because we had some health issues in my family. So when I went away to college, I ended up moving home after 2 years and started working full time. And at 20 years old, you think my life is over. What am I doing? I'm not in the dorms. And for me, it ended up being the greatest twist of fate and such a bittersweet thing because it really did kind of propel my career and force me to figure out what I wanted to do at an early age. And now here we are.
yeah, I think people who were forced due to life circumstances to get into the real world earlier than others, sometimes they just have that incredible experience and advantage. And other people are great too. They go like traditional route. It works well for a lot of them. But I feel like the people I've spoken to have, they didn't go to the best college. Maybe they, like you, had to live at home, or they didn't graduate. They only went for a couple of years and they realized it wasn't for them. I feel like this self-empowerment of what you do for higher education and how you integrate that into your career, it's becoming increasingly important because feel like the value of that traditional four-year college is definitely under pressure because you can get everything you quote unquote need to know from a data perspective out of ChatGPT or Grok or whoever. But it's more like, how do you learn the other skills? And that's what I'm struggling with a little bit. It's like I've got twin boys who are 14 years old. They're freshmen in high school now. And I'm like, what are the skills that they need to learn to be successful in this world? And it's very different than 35 years ago when I was a freshman. I'm 49, so it was a long time ago. And for me, it was like all about like knowledge and get as much knowledge as you can. But these days, it's all about like practical skills and how do you get those skills? So it's fascinating.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I'm 42 and, you have 14-year-old, I have an 11-year-old. And the skills that I see kind of these younger kids even lacking, right? Like they don't communicate as well because they're not talking.
Yeah, my kid calls me on the phone. He says, "I need this," and then he hangs up. There's no like, "Hello, how are you? Goodbye." It's like, "This is what I need," and hangs up.
Right? I remember when we were, 30 years ago, it's like texting. Well, who the heck would want to send a message? Why wouldn't you just pick up the phone and call? And look at now, it's like it's almost a novelty to talk. So that brings up, how do we train our staff and how do we grow too? It's those soft skills and those hard skills. But the hard skills are just as important because they can't be replaced by machine learning, right? And you can't, or it's harder to kind of be displaced by that. But yeah, I mean, for me, it propelled the entrepreneurial kind of trajectory, but I'm with you. I don't know how four-year colleges, I think they're going to have to evolve their offerings as well, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm actually going to speak at a college campus next week in the School of Communications. And, we tell people like it's all about that your work ethic and your soft skills. How do you interact with people? How are you, able to handle customer service and how are you able to handle conflict when something doesn't go your way or you do need to adjust? And those are the things that I think our younger generation, it's going to be really important that they have those skills as well.
And so you've been doing this for a couple decades with your own firm, but I'm curious to understand, like, what are the key challenges that you feel like you faced along the way, or if there's a challenge you're really struggling with at the moment, something you recently had to overcome? Like, how's it going for you? Not everything's, roses. How's it going on the other side too?
Oh yeah, we have our fair share of challenges, just like any company. I mean, over the years, the single hardest thing for me as a young female business owner was to be taken seriously. I mean, that plagued me, gosh, all through my 20s and most of my 30s.
And you think that was exterior or self-imposed or a mix of both?
Bit of both. You kind of, I'm not getting not a crazy feminist or anything like that or gonna get into that. But as a woman, you're asked to wear many different hats. And, sometimes when you're too strong, you come across as, that witchy word, and sometimes when you're too passive, you come across as you don't know what you're talking about. So it is really, for me, that was a big challenge, was kind of finding that nice mix of being soft and strong, which I don't think that my male counterparts have to think about as actively as I do. Um, from an exterior perspective, people respond well to when you know your stuff and you can communicate and articulate it well, then obviously you're taken more seriously. But there's those insecurities again internally, and that's why one of the reasons we are a very strong female office. We say that we are female owned and managed. Most of my leadership team, we're all women. If you go to my website, it has a very, it skews very feminine. And we're proud of that, right? So I think for me, that was something that I had to look at eventually as a strength and not a detriment. Tactical challenges here always are, how do you retain and attract and retain good talent? How do you keep your staff motivated? How do you, keep them up to date with what's going on? How do you implement processes? We're an agency full of creative people. So you need kind of that balance of people that are more process oriented. Anybody who ever interviews with me, I ask them, how do you keep yourself organized? Because that's one of my biggest challenges. I am super unorganized. I am a big picture thinker. I'm not a minutia. I'm not detail oriented. I'm not keeping lists. So, for me, I have to surround myself with people that complement that skill set, that are the opposite of me. And it's kind of finding like that right ratio of people. Some of the challenges we've had too are, how do we diversify our offerings? How do we diversify our services? Like one thing that we brought in house last year that's fairly new to us was a full time video team. Video is a huge part of marketing now. So how do we integrate that into the communications that we're already doing? How do we sell it to clients? How do we manage it? The biggest thing for me is always knowing when is the right time to hire a new person. I'm the type that I will push us until I can't physically do it myself anymore, and that's when I know it's time to hire a new person. But I don't know if that's the right way, right? Like I don't know if that's
Do you have any financial metrics that you use to help guide that decision?
not necessarily metrics. We look at when we grow our revenues, and our bottom line, does that lead us to a certain amount of, extra that we can bring in to kind of help with support staff? Do we, I know if we bring in a new, $300,000 client, that's going to equate into X amount of hours of work. So how does that translate into staffing around it? You hit the nail on the I've said that a few times now. You kind of alluded to the financial metrics. That's one of my big goals for as we come into our 20th anniversary, come into the new year is how do we use the data to make better informed decisions? Where are we really making money? Where are we losing money? Where are we most profitable? How are we pricing properly? Are we pricing properly? So those are exercises that we're just starting to kind of scratch the surface with. Long overdue, 18 years in, should have been doing it, 10 years ago. But I've kind of always gone by intuition, and I do not recommend that for anyone. If we sort of look towards our, our 10-year, 20-year exit strategy, I want to be able to have our numbers, it's the old Shark Tank, we want to have them, we want to know them, we want to know them really, really well. So that's a personal goal of mine as we kind of move to the next chapter of image here.
Cool. And so you mentioned trying to, you know, get a better handle on your finances. Do you have people track their time?
We do. So we use Harvest. So we do use Harvest. Yeah, we've been using it for a few years now. We try to be pretty accurate with it. Most of our team is working on multiple clients, multiple projects throughout the day, the week. So there is a lot of, bouncing back and forth to the different projects. But it helps us kind of figure out, okay, where is time being spent? Are we giving too many hours to this client? Are we not giving enough, when it comes up time for renewals and clients say, well, what did you actually do for us this year? Right? It's been a great tool to be able to say, well, we spent 60 hours on this creative project. So we track time from that perspective. We use QuickBooks for our accounting software. We outsource our bookkeeping and our payroll to try to keep everything as streamlined as possible.
Well, that's great. You're tracking. I know, like time tracking is this like stigma. Either people are like adamantly opposed to it. It's old school. It's like the Stone Ages. How can you dare like you don't trust your people to do good work? You make them track their time. But on the other hand, it's the single largest cost for agencies and any professional services firm in general. So, like, it's like if you're manufacturing widgets, why don't you track the cost of a widget? Well, if you're delivering SEO strategies or public relations campaigns, why don't you track the cost of delivering that stuff? But I think the key though is making it easy. Like I don't think anybody should ever have to sit down at the end of the week and fill out a spreadsheet with their time. It should just be like part of workflow, task based, like in Harvest. You have a timer, you have a task. If you've got good SOPs set up, you've got a task. Somebody has to do it. They open their task, they click the start button, they work on the task, they click the stop button when they're done. And the time gets captured. It's not onerous. It's just part of the workflow. And I think that's the mind shift that is really needed.
Well, and I think that, you're right to say, there was definitely a learning curve for us when we first started it. People wanted to know, our staff was like, do they not trust us? Do they not think that, we're working 40, 50 hours? Or if we don't track 40 hours one week, how is that going to affect things? And for us, it was really like, we just needed to see where the time was being spent. If somebody's got, less work that week and they're not working, their full time, like it's not, it doesn't affect our culture at all. It really just is another tool and just another data point that we can use for, kind of our growth strategies.
Right. It's not like good or bad. It's just data and you can use to manage accordingly. Yeah, I think the key is, I don't know. I mean, I know some firms are managed differently than others, and some firms might be more of a grinded out type firm where you got to get 40 hours a week in, and other firms like I look at my timesheets in every week. It's informational. I know like who at a light week, who's got a heavy week. We look at it on a trailing 1 week, a trailing 4 week, and a trailing 12 week basis. So in any given week, anything can happen. But if you look at 12 weeks, basically 3 months, yeah, this is kind of on average how busy people are. And if somebody's like busier or somebody's not very busy, it helps inform work allocations. And it's just data. It's not good or bad. It's data that you need to use to manage a firm if you're in a services business. That's how I look at it anyway.
Absolutely. And I think that, yeah, to that point, it's how do you allocate resources? If somebody's saying, oh, I am so overwhelmed. I am, I need help here, or I can't get this project done. And, great. Then we have the data to kind of back it up. So yeah, so that's been a big help for us. But we're also not an agency. Like, I have a friend who works in an agency, a creative agency, and every project, when they price out the project, gets assigned a number of hours. And if the client exceeds the hours, they get billed for it. Now, that's not that's not how we do things, but maybe there's something to it, right? And maybe if I was able to grow my bottom line by 20% by just having less slippage and things like that. So those are kind of the things that are always spiraling around in my head. Do you have to be that extreme where you're billing like for the extra 10 minutes? No, it's definitely not in our agency, but maybe there's some learnings there.
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, I've gone back and forth on the fixed price versus hourly billing model, and at SmartBooks, we're currently mostly on an hourly model now. But for the first decade or so of the business, we were almost strictly fixed price. But it really comes down like managing that scope of service and how to effectively, you know, scope out what you're delivering, what the client's willing to pay for, and how do you deal with the exceptions that come up, right? So it's definitely not easy, and I know there's a lot of prognosticators in your industry and my industry that say, "Do away with timesheets, everything should be fixed price," but maybe that works if you're in a very narrow niche and you can price really high compared to your costs. But for most of us, we're not in the super profitable niche. We're trying to get by. We have to manage things, right?
Exactly. I'm just trying to squeak out a living here, one day at a time. So
I'm curious. You've been doing this for a couple decades now, but you know, when you were a little baby Kate, did you think you'd be running your own business one day? And like, what were the key milestones along the way?
So it's funny. If you ask my parents, they would probably say, yes, we knew. She didn't like to take direction from anybody else. No, I went to school. I was pre-law, government relations. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Um, I really liked, kind of politics and American government. That was my major. Fun fact, and hopefully this doesn't come to bite me somewhere 20 years down the road. So I've never formally taken any marketing class. in college or higher education. And so, my skill set is one that kind of has translated well into the industry. So that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with what the kids are learning in college. So no, I never thought I'd be in marketing. I kind of fell into it, but I love it. It's when you look at me, my personality, what I like for my hobbies, it's really a great fit for me. But no, I didn't ever think I would really be here. And even when I first started Image, I really never thought that I would grow it to be, um, what it is. Probably that's my least favorite part of running a business like this is kind of managing the team. So I've brought people in, kind of mid-level managers to kind of help. And we're not a 100% shop by any means or anything like that, but it's the HR stuff that isn't really my favorite. I love to sell, and that's my biggest thing. I like to be.
I mean, HR is no founder's favorite. Actually, I have avoid it whenever I can, and I've been doing this for myself for 25 years or something like that, but managing people is the hardest part of any business, and it's the most valuable part, but it's the hardest part too.
It really is, and I give such, credit to people who enjoy it and who thrive in it. I'm not good at creating structure, so that is not a strong suit of mine. So for me, again, bringing people in that can help do that has been, a huge benefit to kind of growing the business. My role is to be out there as sort of the face and to sell and to set the tone and the strategy of where we want to go and our culture and all of that stuff. But so no, I mean, growing up, I didn't think I'd be here. But like I said, I love every minute of it. I wouldn't change it for the world. People ask me, what are you going to do if you ever wanted to sell or retire? And I really don't know. I really don't know. I love working with nonprofits. I thought, maybe I'll run a nonprofit, do similar work, but not have to collect a paycheck around it or as much. That's actually where I first started. When I was mentioning I had to leave college. So 2 years after I left college, I took a job as a director of special events at a nonprofit. And so was doing fundraising and event planning. And there's really great, like, philanthropic intrinsic value in kind of giving back to the world. So kind of went off on a tangent a little bit, but that's sort of, I never thought I'd be here, and now I couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
So you had to leave college financially. Did you end up ever going back or just never look back?
So I went to a private school in Massachusetts on a 4-year degree or 4 year degree. It was a small liberal arts college.
Clark, right?
Clark University. Yep, yep. So in Worcester, and because of my family, we had some health issues back in Connecticut. So that's when I decided to kind of come home, be closer to family, and I started working right away. I went to a couple different colleges and took classes, night classes here and there. And then ultimately I came home at 20 and said to my mom, I'm just not cut out for this anymore to keep going and sitting in class. So I did end up getting my bachelor's degree from an online university. And so that is in organizational leadership and communications. So yeah, yeah. Um, but I never thought that was gonna be my path. I thought about going back, for an advanced degree. Thought about, teaching. I've been approached to teach college classes in communications and marketing. So if I ever want to do that seriously, at that point, maybe I'll consider going back for another year or two. Mm. But for right now, I'm happy with my online degree.
Cool. And so what was it that got you over the hump to actually start your own business?
So um, I was, well, when that company had asked me to do consulting, I didn't really know what that meant. I did always have a little bit of a kind of type A entrepreneurial spirit. I'm a strong personality type, and um, so I like working with people. And I thought, you know what, maybe I could do this, right? Maybe I could kind of explore how this could work. And I always thought that I would work full time internally somewhere and then do it as just a side hustle, make a little bit of extra money. I mean, again, being in New York at 23, things are expensive. So what kind of got me over the hump was being able to maintain both for a couple of years, having the security of that full-time salary, and then also exploring more. And I got married when I was 27. When I got married, I my husband at the time had said, you know what, now is the time. If you want to do this more full time and explore it more, then this would be the best time to do it. So that's when I really took the leap to do it full time. And he was a good partner to me back then. I was kind of providing that extra safety net.
Yeah, I got married when I was 27 as well.
Yeah. It's to have a partner who kind of is entrepreneurial and understands that mindset is definitely a help.
Yeah, so my wife, I feel like Jenny's awesome, and I feel like it took a little bit of time for her to appreciate the entrepreneurial crazy mindset that we have sometimes.
Yep, it's not for everyone. That's for sure. Sometimes I find too, I've since gotten divorced. And so, with that, as you meet people, you think, this kind of lifestyle isn't for everybody, right? Like you need to kind of have a strong stomach to not only take it on, but also be the partner of somebody who's taking it on. Cause there's a lot of change and a lot of risks and a lot of things that you just don't think about until you're in it. Right. And so at the end of the day, with a small company like mine, the buck stops here. My mind is always on and we're always thinking and it's got multiple mouths to feed here. And so you kind of aren't ever able to turn it off, which isn't for everyone. Right. Some people love a 9 to 5. You go, you do your work, you leave, and that's it. I just was never cut out for that.
Yeah, it's tough, and ultimately, you have a financial P&L to worry about, and so I'm curious, I gotta ask, since my day job is running accounting and finance and bookkeeping and tax for clients, I'm curious, I gotta ask you a couple questions here. How do you go about managing the finance aspect of your firm these days?
So we have an internal bookkeeper, excuse me, not bookkeeper, an office manager. So she does our accounts payable, accounts receivable. She does all of our monthly billing. Most of our projects are on a monthly cycle. They are fixed costs, where we're adding on, different projects as we go. So she kind of handles that. We have kind of a checks and balances. She prepares them all. I approve them all. We have an external bookkeeper who does all our reconciliations. So at the end of the month, she closes out all the books, make sure everything matches up, make sure that we're, collecting on what we need to be collecting, that, excuse me, the numbers look good. And then we outsource our accounting. We have our accountant does our returns, our taxes, our tax planning, our tax prep, um, just making sure that everything is in line.
Cool. And are there particular reports or metrics that you like to get as the business owner to help you stay on top of what's going on?
No, not necessarily. Our accounting is a little bit old fashioned. The way we do our deposits, the way we, kind of keep our cash flow running, isn't for everyone. Sometimes you know, we'll sit on deposits for a while. Sometimes we'll, do them right away. So no, from a reporting perspective, I'm really just looking at the P&L year over year, month over month. I'm looking, we're pretty cyclical. Like right now, we're coming into our busiest time of year. So the last 2 months of the year are the craziest for us, the most transactions, the most billing, the most money going out the door, the most pass through, which is a little challenging as you sort of plan for year end. I just had him call my accountant this morning and said, we gotta figure out where we're gonna end the year here. And to some, I'm sure that sounds a little bit too lax, right? You don't really know November 1st where you're gonna be, but we try to keep a general kind of eye on it. But most of our costs are fairly fixed, so we sort of know what's coming down the pike at any given moment.
And so with you, the variability is the holidays between November and December 31st?
Yeah, so because we work in retail, we have the most ad spends now, the most commercials, the most media. We're doing the most paid social media. Everybody wants to spend at the end of the year. So, it's the old adage, if you don't spend it, you lose it. So a lot of times now in the next few weeks, we'll get calls from our clients, from marketing directors. Hey, we've got this surplus. We've got to spend it somewhere. I don't want to lose it. We have to accrue it, all that kind of stuff. Of course, it's obviously renewal time. It's looking at all the contracts, doing everybody else's year ends, reporting to everybody, coming up with strategies for next year. So it's definitely a busy time of year for sure.
Yeah. So if I'm sure you've learned a lot over the last couple decades of owning your own firm here, but if you can go back in time to when you started your firm, based with the benefit of hindsight, and give yourself some advice, like what would you tell yourself 10 or 20 years ago?
Oh, what a great question. Mm, I would say I would have been more aggressive. There was there was a period of time where I was pretty lax with our business development and our sales goals and, driving revenue and hiring. And I don't know if that was kind of just my own, like, let's play it safe. And is this really happening? Are we really growing already? And kind of a pinch me moment. But if I could go back, I'd say, you know what, just let's go for it. Right. You're young, you've kind of have a good safety net. If things don't work out, what's the harm in it? So that's one thing. I think probably now I would diversify a little bit more, right? I wouldn't put so much client stock into one industry. Although it's been great, it's now as that industry is evolving, it is kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? And so I think I would have done a little bit differently with the type of clients we were bringing on. And honestly, I probably would have brought on so many small clients at first. When you're first starting, you're so desperate to take anything for not only the revenue, but the validity of it, feeling like you're a real business, feeling like you're getting paid to give a service to somebody. And so you typically undercharge and kind of undercut yourself. Um, and so I would say probably, you know, start more aggressive, go after those clients, those big fish that you really want to work with. Show them why you're valuable and go for it.
So, do you have any advice? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. I recognize, but like if you're trying to go pick some big fish that when you're a startup, like how do you establish credibility or like does it really matter?
Listen, I will tell you, I'm a marketer true and true. So, any story can be spun. If there's data points that you can kind of show as case studies, as even if it's not exactly in line with what the client's looking for, show that you're an expert in whatever field it is, right? Show that you know what you're talking about. Knowledge to me is a superpower. I have a friend who's a politician and he always tells the story about why he won his first election because everybody said, you're the underdog, you're never going to win it. And the guy who, said to him, you should run, gave him a book this thick and said, these are all the issues. Go home, read it. If you have any shot at winning in the primary next week, this is what's going to get you there. And he studied it and he read it and he knew his stuff. And I think that's true. The same could be sort of translated. If you know your stuff and if you are confident in what you're speaking about and you bring value to somebody, what does it really matter that you don't have a fancy marketing budget or you don't have a fancy logo or a team of 100 people or a fancy office space? Like people want people that they can work with. And I think we're seeing that now so more than ever. There's just so much opportunity for growth with social media and LinkedIn and YouTube. Anybody can be an expert in anything. And you see that these like influencers, they come out of nowhere and 10 weeks later they have 100,000 followers on LinkedIn just because they're talking about what they know really well. And people are not craving, but consuming knowledge very differently. It goes back to in the beginning of our discussion, we were talking about, how the kids process information differently, right? Than when we did 20, 30 years ago. We were taught to memorize. We were taught to, learn those skills and internalize them. They're taught differently now. They're taught how to consume and then react to the knowledge that they're given, the information and the data. And so I think that can be translated really well to, like I said, some of these influencers that are putting all this information out there. So that was kind of a long-winded way of saying, trust in yourself, know your I don't want to swear on your podcast.
Know your shit and go, don't be afraid to say it, right?
Know your gut. Exactly. And use a platform. Doesn't have to be expensive. Use it and to magnify your voice out there. And it's so funny because we always joke, right? The cobbler's kid has no shoes. Like I could be doing such a better job of our social media and our knowledge base and putting ourselves out there. We preach it to other people, but it's time consuming. And so, um, if I were starting out, that's where I'd kind of focus. Is more on kind of amplifying that messaging.
So what do you like to do outside of work?
Is there such thing outside of work, Alvin? What do I like to do? Well, I mentioned my son. I have an 11-year-old, and he keeps me busy. I'm a sports mom. He, he's involved in different teams, so we do a lot of that. I'm a sports fan myself. I love going to games.
What sports?
I'm a big football fan. I love going to a good football game.
So you're in Connecticut. So you like Giants, Jets, Patriots? What are you?
We're Giant season ticket holders. Yeah, yeah. So, where I am is like straight down the line, right? If you go up north towards where you are, it's all Patriots. For us, it's mostly New York. But yeah, no, I love sports. I love spending time with my family. I know that sounds cliche. I come from an old school Italian family. When I was 23, I bought the house next door to my mother where I grew up. I still own it. I still rent it out. I think I have dinner with my parents 4 to 5 nights a week.
Wow, you're 23. You were a homeowner at 23. Wow, that's great.
I what? Yeah. Yeah. 20, 24, 24. Uh, but yeah, yeah. So, which again is, God, that was 20 years ago. It's so hard for these kids to buy houses now these days, but that's maybe kind of how I fell into real estate, why I like it so much. I own different properties and kind of manage those outside the business. What do I like to do? I love nonprofit work. I love charities. I love going to different events.
So how do you prioritize what to get involved with? Because I'm always being solicited by everybody to get involved with stuff, and I have my own priorities, but sometimes I might not want to put those out there publicly. But like, how do you decide? As a marketing professional, understands what the public perception will be of what you get involved with. Like, how do you decide what to get involved with?
So for me, I keep it really close to the vest in terms of like my personal interests. My son, um, was born really premature. He was born 15 weeks early. So we were NICU parents and he was a NICU baby. And so that posed a ton of challenges for us. And as a new mom, and
So that's like a couple months early. That's a big deal, right? Yeah.
yeah, he was almost 4 months early. So he was 1 pound 7 ounces when he was born. And he was put on life support the minute he was delivered. And it was pretty touch and go there for a while. I'm not gonna lie. 25 weeks is pretty early. If I showed you a picture of him today, he's taller than me, weighs more than me. He's like a Superman compared to where he started. So we're super proud of him. But yeah, so Children's Hospital is a big, we're big supporters of theirs. We donate a lot of services. We donate a lot of funds, do different events for them. I try to integrate different charities that we're involved in into our clients as well. Like we did a fabulous pediatric cancer fashion show just about a month ago now at a client of ours. And it was amazing to see the kids walk down the runway. It was a benefit for my client. They got great exposure from it. And the charity also raised, a ton of money. So that's kind of how we choose. I support things that are kind of local to us, our local community. Um, my office is in the town that I was born and raised, so we try to give back here. One of the things that I've been pretty cognizant not to do is to get involved in anything that's too controversial. We do a lot of political work. We do, but on both sides of the aisle. We try never to alienate any one group. We do a lot of media training for politicians. So when you see them up there at the mic, sometimes that's us.
It seems hard to, yeah, that seems very hard to avoid alienating because it's like we're so polarized. It seems like if you choose to help somebody on one side, it's like you're choosing is I don't know. Hopefully you figured out how to do it, but for me, it would seem very hard to avoid alienating the other half because we're so polarized.
And not to talk politics, and I won't even go down that road, but the polarization seems to be so much more magnified lately. 5, 10 years ago, I just don't think that I would ever really have a problem saying, oh yeah, we do media training for X and then we do media training for Y. But now we do keep it a little bit tighter. As a business owner who does have clients with ideology on both sides of the spectrum, we're not vocal. We don't really talk about our own personal beliefs. And in an office, of people who also have varying ideology, we don't really kind of express it too much. So I do feel like we've done an okay job at it. If push came to shove and we really needed to, if we had to make a decision, we might. But for right now, we've been fortunate enough to kind of keep it to more regional um, advocacy rather than anything national. I think when you get to the national point, you definitely have to put more of a stake in the sand, if you will.
Yeah. I think best politics is local.
It's the most where you can impact, right? Like, I think that that's your grassroots kind of effort. Those are your neighbors. They're the ones who are setting policy for you.
I love the idea of, I love the like political history and political theory and all that stuff. I try to stay out of it the best I can. Sometimes I can't help myself and I make some comments, but for the most part, like, I just think if we just keep it local, like we have this problem where their taxes go from local citizens, the state, and to the feds, and then you kind of have to beg to get the money back from the feds and the strings attached. And then at the state level, you have to beg and get the money back from the states and all the strings that are attached. And if we just kept everything local, I feel like we'd be in more control of our own destiny. But that's about as political as I feel like I'm getting.
It's like you had a media trainer just tell you beforehand, what to say or not to say. No, I agree. I mean, I think that up here we're both in New England, and we're used to kind of this the local town is where.
I still have a town meeting. I live in a town with a town meeting. Yeah, so it's like we have a town meeting. All the citizens can show up and vote on stuff, you know?
And I love it. I love being up here. I love New England. Um, but yeah, so politics has been something we've flirted with, we've done some work, but definitely doesn't make up the core of what we do.
And then, what else do you like to do outside of work?
That's kind of me in a nutshell. I mean, if we're not going to events for work stuff or networking events, like I said, I'm pretty involved in the Connecticut kind of business community. So, so there's just always something going on. I love to cook. I love learning new recipes. I can't bake for anything. My mother's the baker. I'm the cook.
So you got to explain the difference. I'm still not clear myself on the difference because I like to like stick meat in like a braise and let it go for a few hours or on the grill for a few hours. Baking versus cooking, I couldn't explain that.
So baking is such a precise science and it's chemistry, right? And so it's not a dash of this and a dash of that. It is, you need 2 grams of this leavening and a cup of flour and the way you level it. But my mom is an excellent baker. She's always got tons of homemade goodies, which is why I seem to never be able to get too skinny. And but in my house we cook more, so it's more savory. It's what kind of recipes can we throw together? Can we try new things, new flavor combinations? So I love traveling. That kind of I was just thinking about, well, in Italy and we've done cooking classes and I love traveling. I love going to Europe. But I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the way not to go backwards in politics, but the way that the world is now, it's a little bit scary to kind of venture too far. So, um, for right now, we're just kind of holding steady and trying these different things, And really, as you're a parent, being a parent takes up a lot of time. That's a big hobby. That's, with all the different things, it's always fun, but, you kind of have that work-life balance and that to me is being an entrepreneur has always been at the forefront of it is I want to be able to leave the business, go to my kid's game, go to teacher parent conferences, pick them up from school when needed. I really do try to let my staff do the same because if you don't have that work-life balance, it's just not a good environment overall. So
Yeah, I've come to really appreciate that. When I was younger, before I had kids, I didn't care about teacher conference time slots or whatever. It's like we got work to do. I'm on a race to achieve these financial targets and got to work hard and get it done. And then, it works when I'm in my in my 20s, and then I had kids, and now it's like, well, all these people I work with, most of them have kids too, and like, yeah, work is important, but family is also really important. And how do we balance the two? And I feel like most clients understand every now and then when something comes up and you have to prioritize a family issue. Like like half my team is in Jamaica, so they just got hit by a terrible hurricane, potentially the strongest hurricane to hit Jamaica ever, or at least among the top few. And luckily it directly hit a little further west from where my team is, but, like, I got a team that's, like, they're struggling. They got family members on the western end of the island they haven't heard from in a couple of years, and it's like, "Yeah, we're gonna cover it, and we'll get stuff done for clients," but at the same time, you really feel for the people.
yeah, it's crazy. Things like that, they really do make you kind of realize how fortunate we are in so many different ways. And, it's a lot. The world is an interesting place and it's evolving. And even this whole discussion, with the government shutdown and the SNAP benefits and everything, it's sort of magnifies the divisions in the country and, not to go too far down again a political path, but yeah, I mean, I think that having that kind of balance and that knowing that you're human, right? We're all just sort of doing this to survive, and you want it to be as an enjoyable experience as possible while still getting done what you need to get done. Because at the end of the day, we're all kind of people with the same goals in life. So
So I think we're going on an hour here. I probably need to wrap this up a little bit, but I'm curious if do you have opportunities to partner with other marketing agencies? I want to get the word out if there are things or other people who are listening could bring you in on certain engagements.
sure. Yeah, we love partnering. I'm a big believer in there's plenty of business to go around, and we play really, really well in the sandbox with others. We have some core disciplines that, we do white label to other agencies. Like we're really known for our PR. We do crisis really, really well. So we do messaging well. So a lot of times, media agencies don't necessarily have that in house. So yeah, we're always looking to partner. And conversely, we're always looking for other agencies in different parts of the country too that might have more geographical experience. We do a lot of work in the Chicago market, California. And sometimes you do really need those local kind of boots on the ground relationships to get things done. So if anybody is, listening to this and just wants to kind of drop a line and just so we've got, the other agencies to kind of bounce ideas off of, I'm more than happy to respond to anybody. So I appreciate you bringing that up because, yeah, we love partnering with other people.
And what's the best way for people to reach you?
Sure. So we're pretty active on social. You can go to our Instagram, Image Marketing Consultants, on the gram. Me personally, my email is Kate, Kate, at imagemarketingconsultants.com. And I always chuckle when I say it. People go, that's a really long one. I go, well, yeah, I was 23 and it was on the back of a napkin, and I didn't really ever think that I would need to have a URL this long. So, but yeah, that's the best way to reach me. We have it on our website. There's a contact form. Yeah, people can fill out and get more information about what we do. But yeah, we love working with different people because you know what? I'm a big believer in you don't know what you don't know. And learn and take different nuggets from other people who have done it and who could, learn more from it. So
Awesome. Well, look, Kate, I really appreciate your time. You've shared so much with us. You've told us your life story to some extent, and I really appreciate everything you've shared today. So thank you.
thank you for having me. And hopefully we should talk, again in 10 years, more hobbies. I can tell you something more interesting, like I've taken on painting or something very cool like that. But no, I do appreciate it. This has been wonderful. And hopefully looking forward to connecting with some people out there.
Awesome. So for those listening, if you've learned something today, or you've laughed, or you just like appreciated hearing the trials and tribulations of another agency owner, please tell your peers about this podcast. We're all in this together, so let's help out our fellow agency owners. So this has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.